Okay, David. So as the founder of PlantVillage, I'm very much looking forward to hearing about the background to PlantVillage and how it got started, and so on.
Super. Well, thank you very much indeed, Janet, for the chance to speak here, and hello to everybody. It's very nice to talk to you all about PlantVillage. And so what I want to do is sort of set the scene for a broader conversation and really kind of explain where we've come from and what we're doing. So you can see this slide now. And so I've taken this title from the USAID Administrator Samantha Power, who's also from Dublin in Ireland. And so she talked about this problem that we currently exist in, which is food security in a world of interconnected and gargantuan threats. And this is Samantha here. And she talked about this during her Senate hearing. So in the United States, as you have a senior level administration position, such as the administrator of USAID, you have to go in front of the Senate and you have to explain your case. And she's done that, and I think she's really drawn on some of the problems that we face. And she talked about interconnected and gargantuan problems, mainly around COVID, climate change, conflict, and democratic backsliding. And this was last March 2021. And even she, as a person who won a Pulitzer Prize, talking about some of the issues in Bosnian conflict, for example, or in Darfur, even she probably would not have imagined in her wildest nightmares that we'd have a war in Europe and a war between Russia and Ukraine, and the knock-on effects that has on global food security, particularly around issues of wheat, but also fertilizer supply. So we really are in completely uncharted territory. Now there's some optimism to be gained, and she talks about the fact that we can take a risk that this moment in history demands. And this is really what PlantVillage is emphasizing, that we can take a risk and we can bet on young people, and particularly supercomputer charged young people. And I'll come to that in a moment. So my background for thinking about PlantVillage, I'm a rainforest ecologist. I've worked around the world in rainforests, and every time I come out of a rainforest, I come to a farm, and particularly farms in Africa look like the picture on the right. And my country looked like the picture on the left in 1849. And the needle has not moved in this 170 years or so. We have tens, if not hundreds of millions of people, predominantly older women, pulling up infected material from the ground, cassava, for example, and it's rotten. It's rotten because of a disease. Same thing was in Ireland in 1849. And despite the fact that we're all interconnected on Zoom and have satellites and all of these fabulous technological developments, this is where we are for large numbers of the world's population. This is the former US ambassador to the Rome-based agencies, 𝗵𝗃, and he showed an example that the technology really hasn't moved forward in 2,800 years. So this is a picture of him in Zimbabwe, and there's a museum picture, and this is just a terrible way to go through life. And it's especially a difficult way to go through when we are now in the midst of climate change. So this is, for me, a very dramatic example of what climate change is doing. This is last June in Canada. It's the temperatures of 46 degrees Celsius, 47 and 49. 3 days in a row, this town in Canada broke the records in terms of temperature increases. And then on the fourth day, the whole town burnt down. This is a dramatic example of climate change and just the effects it is having currently, and we're only at the early stages. So we're only at 1.1 degrees above historical norms, and it's going to get much worse going forward. I could have shown a picture of this, which is southern Madagascar, and the fact that they've gone through a 4-year drought now, compounded by climate change, but nobody really cares, frankly. And it's pictures of North America that tends to get a lot of attention because we do a very good job globally of ignoring the plights in Africa and the situations. In 2020, and 2021, we also had a compounding problem in Africa, which is a symptom of climate change, which is increasing amounts of grasshoppers. And when those grasshoppers come together, they form locust swarms. And this is a swarm on the banks of Lake Turkana in northern Kenya, another swarm. And this was a huge problem across the region. And so it's not just the increasing temperature, the increasing drought, it's also the pests that come along with that. So these are threats which are interconnected. Contrast that to global agricultural systems in the United States, Canada, Australia, Brazil, European Union, and you see that the disparity is gross and the inequity is high. This is a corn production in the United States, incredibly effective and efficient, and the biomass coming from that is enormous. So this lady on the banks of, on the hills of Mount Kenya has a poor tool for the occasion. And PlantVillage really came about for me when I came to Penn State, thinking of what the land-grant universities have done in this country since 1862, the architect of which was Abraham Lincoln. And they were a system of universities set up to engage in practical science that would help the growing population of farmers in the United States. At that stage, about 60% of the people were farmers. Now it's less than 2%. And the idea was that we have to have a new effort. Now, this quote I really like. It's from Lincoln in his second inaugural address to Congress. And he talks about the dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty. We must rise with the occasion. As our case is new, we must think anew, we must act anew, we must disenthrall ourselves. And I think that's really important because with climate change and the pests that are also compounding that problem, and then compounded by war like the one we have in Europe, all bets are off and things are incredibly bad. And that's why PlantVillage exists. The idea is to help smallholder farmers adapt to climate change through the application of technology, particularly the supercomputer, which is the computer of choice for the next 500 million people to come online. And the capabilities of these phones are really impressive. And you can see that in the hand of Rosalind here, one of our lead farmers in Western Kenya in Busia, and she's beside Emiliana. So she's got a phone that we provided to her, and she's using it to diagnose, in this case, cassava diseases, cassava mosaic disease. And she's using AI inside the phone, which is working offline, and it's able to diagnose the problem, and it's twice as good as a human. So the phone has inside it AI twice as good as a human. And then Rosalind is able to show Emiliana, and we want Emiliana to see the problem, which she can see with these dancing boxes. So it turns out to be a very useful instructional tool for farmers to be educated. And this is really important when we recognize that in Africa, the number of human experts are very low. So it's typically one extension worker for 3,000 farmers, but the cell service or phones are ubiquitous. So we could have phones providing the services that humans used to provide. So the opportunities now are really quite high. And having built one model, so a lot of this is led by Pete McCloskey, our lead AI engineer, we're able to build other models. So the speed at which these are being developed. Now, you notice not just Pete, it's also domain experts like Serge, and also people from the CGIR centers like Jan Kreutz and many others. So essentially, we're trying to get a human expert into a phone, and we do a very good job of this, and we work very closely with particularly the CGIR centers. This is work on sweet potato, where we're giving a diagnosis of healthy in this case. And then this is a newer type. It's not the bouncing boxes, but it's something called segmentation. So the image goes up into the cloud, and they were able to diagnose rust diseases. So the technology is just getting better and better. So the power of our discrimination is getting higher. This is something that we're really quite excited about. It's in Uganda. For a few reasons. One is that from the moment we took the first images to train the AI till we got an AI model in the phone was about 30 days. So that's fantastic. It took about 1.5 years to do the cassava issue. And also Milsort Kemboy is from Kenya, and she's working in Uganda. And she's our first AI expert from Africa. And she's been trained by Pete, and Pete will be in Kenya this week, continuing that training. And then from her, we train other people and so on. So we want to create an army of young people who are able to do the sort of work that Pete is doing himself, of course, a young person. And so this is the system. It goes up into the cloud, and I hope you can still see this now. I'm showing you the Ag Observatory. So the data comes up, and we can see Tanzania here. We can see the use of the app in the last period of time. And it does work offline, but when people are reconnected to the phone, then we can pull the data up. So we can just pull this. We can see the images as they come in, and we can zoom into a location, for example, here. And the data, although it's working offline, we can see it. We can send a notification to the person. We can override the diagnosis. We can do a lot here up in the cloud. And so this is just the last last month or so of the use of the app in across Africa. So we can just type in Tanzania here, and we can just drill into people using it in Tanzania. So, and then again, sending messages and being able to see the utility of it. We can then pull it into another component of the site. This is the observatory, and I'll just show you a county in Kenya in this case, where we're doing a big experiment. And I can see people have been uploading images recently, and we can just kind of skim down and see those. And I can click on one of them, and I can see this is Dennis's farm, this is the location. And now what we're doing is pulling in satellite data. So we had the image in the field, we're pulling in that satellite data, and then we can run a crop water balance of precipitation. So how much water is needed. This is from MODIS and Landsat satellites. This is from a NASA, these are both NASA delivered via the United Nations. This is NASA here on soil moisture. This is something else in terms of forecast. This is from a private company in irrigation. And then these are the pictures from 5 days ago. Sometimes it's from a few hours ago, depending on the cycle. And then we can also send a message directly to the farmer via our SMS system. So it's an integrated approach where we can provide that level of advice. And we think this is important for the Dream Team, for example, who are working with farmers so they can have a greater reach because they're being powered by the AI system. So the farmers also get the benefit of these satellite-derived observations. So this is Rosalind again holding a phone, and we can actually show her biomass across time. And then we can also use machine learning to predict that and give her an understanding of what sort of yields she's expecting. You may remember in 2019, there was 2 massive cyclones, all symptoms of climate change, hitting Mozambique, Idea and Kenneth, and they pulled the moisture out of Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania in the atmosphere. And so this is cross-continental determination of stress that we can see. So it really is true to say that these are supercomputers in the hands of smallholder farmers, because you can detect that change across wide areas. So a satellite connected supercomputer enables time travel. So we have farmers like this, who are same as the farmers in Ireland in 1849, and they're making a leap forward. This shouldn't be new to us. Mobile money and M-Pesa in Kenya in 2006 and now across the continent, that allowed time travel where we didn't have to go through the brick and mortar bank buildings that we've had all over the world, but we were able to move to mobile money. So the phone is truly a revolutionary tool for Africa. Because of the success of what we were doing, we got a large investment by USAID, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned administrative power at the beginning. And this is up to $39 million over the next 5 years. This is the current and emerging threats to crops innovation lab, and it's a critical approach where we integrate the farmer, technology, and then integrated pest management solutions like parasitoid wasps and fungi that can attack the striga weed. But it's really all centered around the Dream Team member, because the Dream Team member, the young people of the continent of Africa, are the most important people, because for a variety of reasons, we can talk about that, the question and answer, but fundamentally they have energy and good ideas, and they're not stuck in an old way of thinking. And in the case of climate change, in the time of war and COVID, then you really need to be flexible and nimble in your thinking. And that's where young people are so critical. So we have over 150 of these Dream Team members. This is the initial group from Kenya, with John Chalal, who set them up. But now it's just expanded, and they're just phenomenal people. Some of these members of the Dream Team trained those in Tanzania. I think maybe it was Liverson and Winnie, but somebody can correct me if I'm wrong there. But they also build trust with the farmers because they overlap in age with the children of the farmers. In fact, one of them, Faith Orone, is the daughter of Madam Consolata, a farmer, one of our first farmers. So they overlap in age, and they develop trust. And trust is so critically important to bringing people from what is essentially an analog world where they don't use technology into using the most advanced handheld supercomputers, running AI systems that we have in agriculture globally. And then to extend upon that trust, we want to work with other groups who have a lot of trust. And this is leveraging the trust of the Tanzania Development Trust, and so that we can build on the pre-existing relationships that people have. I think that's really important. Just in closing, we also have this Feed the Future Lab, a lot of groups involved, a lot of partners, and a lot of efforts. And one of those is Dream Team Agro Consultancy. This is a owner-operated company in Kenya. Now we have them in Tanzania, Mozambique, Uganda, and soon to be setting up a company in Ethiopia. So the idea is that young people can really run the show and deploy these packages, test it, do research with us, but also have a sustainable path forward. Can they charge farmers for these services, which we know to be very beneficial? And then not only the local efforts with the company, but also really advanced technology, such as genetic sequencing. So we really always want to be constantly using advanced techniques, so we can improve our understanding of what problems exist and enable rapid response to them. We also expand beyond animals. So in this case, we have an animal disease system, PlantVillage, for the pastoralists of northern Kenya, but important for all the Sahelian regions, but also in Tanzania and Uganda and elsewhere. And then even in the food, we also work on nutrition systems as well. But taken together, it's a simple idea. Create an equitable system that leverages the power of technology, and not just allow technology to be in the hands of people in the West, but to be truly a democratic force for good, understanding that the best people to push this forward are those who are young, intelligent, and full of energy, and have the local trust of their community members. So with that, I'll close, and thank you very much for allowing me to share all that with you.
Thank you, David. That was fantastic. I don't know, could you just say a little bit about some of the things that you're doing around, or that you've got in the pipeline around climate change, around good carbon and tree planting and biochar?
Sure. So one of the biggest problems is the drying out of the landscape that happens because of high winds and high temperatures. So our solution there is to build a living wall around the borders of the farm by planting trees. And these trees reduce the evapotranspiration from the field. And it also then leads to a system whereby you can put in biochar into the soil, and that also helps very much in holding the nutrients in the soil, as well as holding water close to the soil. And so we planted over 560,000 trees in Kenya and in Burkina Faso, and we want to expand to other locations. And excuse me, this is a very low-cost, beneficial approach that enables farmers to get an additional source of income, because if they grow trees, they're capturing carbon, and carbon is worth something on the international market, about $125 a ton. If the farmers are producing biochar, which means they essentially make charcoal, and they put that charcoal in the ground. So they also have a source of a fertilizer, which is really important because the war in Europe is going to massively impact fertilizer prices. So it's a sort of a triple win, where we can create jobs for youth. We can develop a system whereby farmers will have an alternative source of income, and will de-risk farmers from international fluctuations in the fertilizer market due to the war in Europe. So this is a large approach that we're taking. And we sort of take this because although we've done well with working with partners like the Gates Foundation and USAID, the scope of the problem, where you have to bring 300 or 400 million African farmers out of poverty in the next 10 years, is too enormous for the public purse. And the way the public has neglected Africa in the last 2 years during COVID is a clear demonstration that we really don't care so much about Africa. And the way in which we need to solve this problem is through, I think, the capital markets, because Africa has one thing that the rest of the world needs, and that's surface area, because solving climate change means we have to pull down as much as 10 billion tons of carbon every year and store it. And Africa, bisecting the equator as it does, has both the ability to grow lots of plants, but also to store the carbon long term, so it doesn't go back into the atmosphere. And long term is at least 100 years. So I think Africa is in a unique position to get a lot of wealth that it would be moving around due to carbon credits exchange programs, and that wealth can go straight to farmers and help them out of poverty in a single generation, is the idea.
Thank you very much. Benedicto had a question around, do you allow other solutions from grassroots organizations dealing with climate change? I mean, I'm not sure quite what he means. I mean, I guess I'm sure that you're working with many other organizations and taking ideas from them. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Right. First, I'll say that the people who trained the Tanzanian team were 𝗪𝗫 𝗪𝗠 and Bismarck from our Kenyan team. So thank you, John, for that information. Yes, we work with everybody, grassroots to Google, and everybody in between. This is the defining crisis of humanity. It's more important to World War II, what we face in the next 10 years. We have been growing crops for 10,000 years, 12,000 years, and we've never tried to grow them in the current climate. We are now hotter than any time in humanity's history when we evolved 300,000 years ago in East Africa. We've invented agriculture 10,000 years, and it's going to get hotter. 2022 will be the coldest year you'll ever remember. Even if you're 20 years old and you live for another 80 years, it'll be the coldest year you ever remember. And it's going to get to 2 degrees Celsius and possibly 2.2. And it's catastrophically bad. And that means everybody needs to be involved in a very practical, clear-eyed way of working together. And unfortunately, the international development community and agricultural space has failed in the last 10, 15 years, because, and it's not just an opinion, it's based upon the decline, the increase in food insecurity over the last 4 or 5 years, where we're failing. And so we have to approach this in a very different way. That means everybody has to be involved, and we all must remember we work for farmers. And so it doesn't matter if you're grassroots or Google, everybody can be involved.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for David? Otherwise, I have some more. David, okay. Can you say something about are there any predictions around temperature rises in Tanzania specifically?
So yes, it's going to get hotter and drier. So we're in the worst drought in 40 years in East Africa. That predominantly affects Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia, but it has large effects on northern Tanzania. And the reason is because of the surface temperature in the Indian Ocean is increasing. So it's creating what's called a dipole effect, and that's creating La Nina. So it's highly predictable. And as the surface temperatures in the oceans increase, it leads to more hot air. That's got 2 consequences. One is it dries out East Africa, and the other is it increases the magnitude of cyclones coming into the coast. And so warm air holds more moisture, but then it drops. So we're going to have 2 things going forward: more droughts and more floods. So overall, the amount of rain is probably not going to change massively, but you'll get a lot of the rain, say for a whole season, all of that might come in 3 days. And that means we're going to see huge amount of soil erosion, flooding and death. And then when that goes, then we'll have large periods of drought. So if you're planting maize, for example, which is typically 120 days, your ability to have reliable rain across that 120 days is essentially gone. 96% of African farmers are rain fed. And so they're planting a crop and they're hoping for the best. And this is just a completely unsustainable path forward. We're just simply not going to be able to farm it that way. So what's necessary is that people hold the moisture close to the root. Biochar is really helpful. Have irrigation. There's a lot of water underneath the ground in Africa. We really have to massively promote irrigation, water harvesting, and water conservation, as well as conservation ag practices. But what's going to happen is, just as I said, you will try to plant and grow in an environment that no human has ever tried to plant and grow in the last 10,000 years. Not you, not your grandparents, not anybody. And you're going to try to do that based upon the historical precedent, and you're not updating for the present or the future. And that's why it's critically important to have young people, because young people are not old by definition, and they're not thinking in the historical approaches. Predominantly African farmers are 55, 56 years old, and they're thinking that it's like the past. That's humans. We discount the future. That's why young people are so important.
Thank you. So are you working to develop more drought-resistant strains of crops at all as well?
We don't. Our partners do. CIMMYT, for example, our CGIR centers are the global leaders in this. And that's important. But the time taken to develop a drought-resistant variety of crop is 5 to 10 years. There's many in the pipeline. What I've been hearing lately is that we're probably at the thermal tolerance for some of these things. We probably can't improve it genetically. So in that way, we want to control the microclimate, and there's ways in which we can certainly do that, controlling the microclimate. So I'll show you a picture from Burkina Faso. So 20 years ago, they had planted here these trees, and so these are just trees along the farm, and the temperature inside here is between 22 and 29 degrees Celsius, and the relative humidity is high. Just a few 100 meters outside of this, the temperature is 34 to 36 degrees Celsius. So trees provide these microclimatic conditions where we can enable the growth of crops. That's important for making sure we don't have seed abortion. So tomatoes, for example, will abort depending on the temperatures. We'll get the physiological stress in a range of crops. So we need to have these microclimatic conditions. We also want to be planting things which are more drought tolerant. Cassava, for example, you can have heat stress, the leaves can fall off, but because it's a tuber, it can grow back. Obviously, things which are like millet or sorghum are better than maize, which is very thirsty. But we're not thinking the solution is to develop resistant varieties. We need to do this today. We need to provide farmers solutions that they can act on.
Thank you. There's a question from Japheth about which crops are best to support women's groups, or generally, particularly in Tabora, which is in the center of Tanzania. So
we've seen some of this in Uganda, where so men are typically focused on cash crops because they want the money, and so staples are really important. But if you say a staple like cassava is better for women, you have to understand that sometimes that has flipped. Like in Uganda, Jeff Sachs, the economist, talked about an example whereby Uganda coffee went down because of a pest, and then the men moved towards cassava because they wanted the cash. So you have to be careful of just identifying something as a woman's crop or not. So you should not think about it in terms of a single crop. Farmers should be diversifying their approaches, meaning they have 2 or 3 crops in their field, but they also have animals. They also have trees, both for firewood or lumber, but all carbon credits, diversifying income streams. So if I was to say to you as a young person, hey, you should invest all of your money in cryptocurrency, that's an insane thing for me to say. Yeah, if you invest a little bit, you might make a bit of money, but you could lose everything. So invest in thinking about a single crop here is problematic, and we need to be building up the resilience of farmers by diversifying their income. Another way to diversify, of course, is to capture more value in the value chain. So instead of losing the money to middlemen, in which way can we increase the processing facilities so that farmers can get more value out of their cassava, for example?
Thank you. So there's a question from Aaron about whether the weather data, does it all come from satellites or are there sensors on the ground that could contribute?
There are sensors. One of the major data sources is called 𝗫𝗄𝗃. So it's both satellite observation of clouds, but it's also ground sensors, and they can be improved with more sensors. We've been putting in some sensors in Kenya with a SIP project, and sensors are becoming cheaper and cheaper. And yes, we can put more in, but it's a mixture of the two. We're also asking people, the dream team, were the records good? What do you think about the forecast? So we can also update that information as well.
Are you planning on putting any more sensors in Tanzania?
Yeah, I think we probably will, especially if we're going towards more hyper-local decision support systems. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I think when you showed the dashboard, there was a large number of cassava diseases. Around what percentage of the cassava is normally diseased, and what impact does that have on the yield?
It's highly variable. Overall, if farms are not working with PlantVillage, then they're predominantly experiencing a massive chronic stress of diseases. So between 50 and 80% of the plants, sometimes 100% of the plants can be infected. There's a nice study by IITA in DRC that when plants are becoming infected at the early stages or starting their life as infected plants because farmers are taking infected cuttings from a neighbor, then the loss of yield between 79 and 95%. So enormous loss of yield. Yeah. So what we have, the dream team in Kenya very effectively showed that farmers would change that behavior, and they were able to use the app to choose healthy material from which they replant. In fact, this was an idea of one of our farmers. And it's a really effective way to ensure that the yield loss is minimized. But it's yeah, most farmers have lots of disease in their farms.
And is cassava particularly, does it have a particularly huge yield loss, or would that be the same for other crops?
It's the same. It can be, yeah, it's the same. You know, there's two things which are eating the crop: you as a human and everything else. And if you don't control the everything else, then you don't get food. And now we have the compounding problem of climate change. But there's nothing special about cassava. It just has lots of diseases, but so does everything else.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, if anyone has any other questions, please do put them in the chat. So I think, Marceline, can you talk now about the training that's happened in Tanzania?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.
So, we've disabled sharing of screen. So
You should be able to. Oh, right. Let me just. Okay, you should be able to share now. Okay.
It is still disabled.
Sorry. I think I made you co-host and then you left and came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you're right, it should be okay now. Is that okay? And if people have any questions, please do put them in the chat. And also, if you haven't introduced yourself and you'd like to do so, please do.
So, hi everyone. My name is Maslin Suma. I work with the Dream Team in Kenya. So I'd like to briefly explain about the Dream Team. So the Dream Team is a team of young graduates with an agriculture background and from their local universities in the different countries. And this is a concept that was created by Dr. John Chelal. He's a lecturer of Moi University, and he's also the founder and director of the Dream Team Agro-Consultants in Kenya. And the Dream Team started with 10 graduates from Moi University. It was just an idea of doing some research and some extension services to the local communities. Yeah, and that's how this concept was born. And currently we have more than 100 Dream Team members that are in different countries in Kenya, Uganda, Mozambique, Honduras, Nepal, Burkina Faso, and recently Tanzania. So in Tanzania, we trained a group of 10 youth that have a background in agriculture from different universities in Tanzania. And we're able to train them on the different duties that they're supposed to do. The roles of the Dream Team. So this team has a duty or has a responsibility of working with farmers on a day-to-day basis. And these are the activities: visiting or calling farmers and solving any technical issues with the phone or the application, and mapping fields using the 𝗁𝗃 application, or conducting surveys in the fields using the PlantVillage 𝗵𝗃 application. Another duty is spreading information about PlantVillage 𝗵𝗃 and the services that PlantVillage provides. And then another role is connecting or linking farmers to seed entrepreneurs. These are people who have been certified to produce cassava cuttings and multiply them and sell them to other farmers in the community. Another responsibility of the Dream Team is to collect data on chosen farmers' fields on the specific projects, and also using the PlantVillage Ag3 observatory that is available on the website to remotely check on the progress of the farmers, as David has shown earlier. And this here is the team in Tanzania that was recently trained, and they have been working with the farmers. Currently, they have identified 30 groups of farmers that they're working with, and we are planning to set up and establish cassava demo plots in the near future. So we are in the process of identifying clean seed sources so that you can be able to establish these demo plots and enable the farmers in Kigoma region to have clean cuttings. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marceline. Any questions for Marceline? Please put them in the chat. So we'll move on to Benedicto, who's just going to talk briefly about Mboni ya Vijana, which is the local partner of PlantVillage in Kigoma, and a bit about how it's working there, and then perhaps we can hear from some of the team in Kigoma, because I know there's quite a few of them here, which is fantastic. Benedicto?
Yeah, thank you, Janet, for this opportunity. Do you hear me?
Yes. Do you want to share your slides or do you want me to do it?
I can share.
Great.
But I think I will have like two different slides to share.
Okay.
Sorry. I can't see sharing option. Sorry.
Okay, while you're doing that, maybe Marceline, you can answer the question about gender with PlantVillage, how you address the gender issues. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Janet. So for PlantVillage, I can say we are a bit biased on the female gender. We always have a target of getting a ratio of 80 to 20, that is 80% women. And that is for the farmers that we are empowering. And for the dream team, we always encourage a 50-50% ratio, that is male-female, or maybe more of the females. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Benedicto, have you sorted out the slide issue? Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, it is there now.
Yeah, okay.
So this is the first thing that I would like to share. Most of you, I think you don't understand what Vijana is. This is indigenous youth and community-based organization, which is based in Kasulu, Tanzania, and it was founded in 2013, but formally was registered in 2014 with the purpose of mobilizing, coordinating, and influencing young people to participate in agricultural and other economic production, but without compromising the future of the environment, which really is to do with climate change. We partnered with the PlantVillage, and this year, since March, we established it whereby the dream team from Kenya came to 𝗧𝗍 for training, and they trained these young people. However, we demanded to have 10 participants or the dream team members at the initial stage, but there were many people, many young people who graduated from Agricultural University of Sokoine, but we opted to have only 10 young men because of the conditions. But still, there are many young people who are interested in participating in collaborating with us and the PlantVillage, so that we make sure that the community is adapting to climate change. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is not just doing about supporting farmers only, but it is doing a lot of activities, which all of them are intended to cope or to transform the community, especially through the issue or the challenge of climate change. Here is a short brief of what we have been doing. As you see here, we have students getting water from the borehole that we do. And this is one of the schools that we have been supporting since 2016, where more than 50 schools has already got this borehole, which for really is one of the way that we do to to make sure that water is not a big issue in our community. You can see here we had the meeting. It was in 2019 when we had youth camp that was ideally training young people how to adapt to climate change. And that was only training how to drill boreholes and a lot of things that as youth we have to do so that we help the nation and the world. But we are involving women as well, as we train them and they support them with the small loans so that they establish small businesses instead of depending much on what the environment it provides, but they have to be creative in order to add the values of their livings. And this is part of our work, supporting community to access to water. This is not a school, but a general community that they can produce even vegetables at their homes by supplying water to their forest areas. But we give them kind of trees, and this was palm trees planting, but we have already planted more than 6,000 trees in 𝗳𝗁, which are different varieties of trees as one of the process of adapting community to climate change. Also, sometimes we have been training the community about protection of the existing natural forests by hanging the hives on the trees. As you see, this is part of what Mboni Vijana has been doing, distributing hives to some of the community members, but the group as an organization has already had the areas where they hang trees as one of the area where it is used to train others to adapt or to protect the tree by using the hives. We do support small farmers on farming. As David has said that they are using like biomass in improving the soil and so the increased yields per area. The same thing that we have been doing in with the maize farmers and the other crops. So this enables the community to be secure with the food through the difficult time by which the world is witnessing difficult with climate change. And this is part of the dream team that I have already said. And this, we thank PlantVillage, Dream Team Kenya, whereby Bismarck and Marceline came to train us about this thing. But one of the things that I think we needed to go beyond that is to have, because most people being surveyed or scouted about assessing the issues facing maize and cassava, basically, but we are doing other crops. But we still have very, very few teams compared to the area that we needed to cover. And still the farmers do not have right technologies which can be used either to report the issues with their farms, but as well as the dream team cannot reach them on time. So there are something that we need to check and improve, and I think I cannot share them here, but I will do like a documentation that will be shared with PlantVillage. There are other things that we do with the communities, but I'm briefly to say that, and thank you PlantVillage and my team, I mean Dream Team Tanzania, for hard work that we are doing together. And I expect that in the near future, we are improving from where we are to the next level that I think will be a real solution to climate change. Thank you everyone for listening, and you are welcome for the questions.
Thank you very much, Benedicto. if there's any questions, then please either write them in the chat or unmute yourself. And then we'll go on to 𝗲𝗲, who's been doing a lot of work with the Dream Team, particularly in Tanzania, around improving the base maps. 𝗲𝗲, can you share your screen?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So 𝗲𝗲 was involved with the group in Mara with Jane, and also now with the group in Kigoma.
Yes, I will just share a brief with the importance of the Dream Team work that they are doing in Tanzania, especially in Mara and Kasulu.
𝗲𝗲, you're quite quiet. If you can speak up a bit.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Also, I just want to share the importance of mapping our local area. That could be very important for the planning and doing the research. As David said, we will be in the very difficult condition in the near future. So I think the best way forward is to start mapping our features around, and how could that also help for monitor and understand the world in the better way. So I do believe when we can involve the ability of mapping around our area, adding the local knowledge of the features available in our community, we can start by tackling that. As maybe you guys in the Dream Team are working on amazing, you are doing an amazing job on adding the information or collecting the information of the farm around the places. But if we could integrate the information that you're collecting about the farm and integrate with the information that are available in the community, like other features, geographical features, that could be very amazing and could lead to a very, very good condition that we can make a start about that and doing some of an amazing job to protect our country. So I just believe it's very easy to do that if we share the knowledge on mapping and adding the local knowledge of the features available. That's why I also asked David about the possibility of importing all the features into the OpenStreetMap so that it could be very easy for doing some change detection and using the data to other purpose. But I just want to share this experience with you, because you can see here I took one of the image that you're using, OpenStreetMap to navigate some of your features here. As you can see here, Outlook. So I was just wondering if we could, with what we are doing as a Dream Team are doing, we can use that to add other geographical information features available in those communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, 𝗲𝗲. Any questions for 𝗲𝗲? Or I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, David.
Sure. Yeah, I didn't show this, but we do pull our data into something called superset, which is a really useful tool for looking at changes across time. I think we do have OpenStreetMap in some of our base maps, but the advantage that we have by having it in the Ag Observatory is that we can look at the data as it comes in, and then we can correct it if it's wrong, and then we can get a really excellent data set. And then we can do that sort of trend analysis over time. We're also working on the data, which can then be used in terms of predicting a short-term forecast of the likely incidents based upon simple machine learning approaches or more complex epidemiological work, which can also give forecasts accurately. But certainly we do use OpenStreetMap. one of the suggestions by Henry is that we could also look at other features. So with Google, we're working with them on flood forecasting. So they're developing tools that we can do this. What they really need is river gauge data. We could also look at their database of houses, so you could understand things about the population structure. But I think that in all of these cases, it always comes back to, if you do this, how does it meaningfully change the life of a farmer? And I think we have to be very careful not to pursue projects that sound interesting, because who doesn't like looking at maps, but making sure it's practical for the farmer. So that would be my response. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? It would be really great to hear from some of the Dream Team in Tanzania about how they're finding the role, any challenges that they've had, what sort of impact, what their day-to-day life is like. So if any of them would like to say a little bit, that would be fantastic.
All right. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
My name is 𝗕𝗲𝗵𝗶𝗃𝗵𝗵. I work with, I'm Dream Team member from Tanzania. I would like to take you through how PlantVillage neural app help us, and how 𝗕𝗲 works here in Tanzania. First of all, I would like to take you through PlantVillage neural app. PlantVillage neural app is a mobile app that uses artificial intelligence to monitor and diagnose pests and diseases damages affecting the crops. PlantVillage neural app has the ability to instantly detect diseases and the pest damage by scanning the leaves for symptoms. All right, and now who can use neural app? First of all, farmers can use a neural app. Experts in field of agriculture, such as researchers, extension officers, government ministries of agriculture, etc., they can use neural app. Benefits of using neural app: collect data on the disease, infection, and pest damage, evaluate data correctly, provide electronic extension officers, provide electronic extension services, and also create awareness on emerging diseases and pests on specific regions. How can you access PlantVillage neural app? You can go to the Google Play Store as usual, search for PlantVillage neural app, click on store, and you can follow the other procedures. Then you'll go you go in the language setting, then you select your preferred language. Hello, are we together?
Yes.
And you have to register yourself. You have to register yourself. Now I would like to take you through features which you found on the neural app. There is this part of first, I told you before that this PlantVillage neural app, it is able to do weather forecasting. The following are the features that found on the
Today you're not
First,
sharing your screen. Today you're not sharing your screen.
I'm sorry, I'm using a phone. I'm using a phone, so I'm a little bit unable to share my screen.
No problem. I thought you were trying to share your screen. It's okay. Please continue. Thanks.
All right. First, name of the user shows the name of the registered with. So when you will have PlantVillage neural app, and after being registered, it will show your name in there. There is notification button. This notification button uses to answer the question that you have asked. And also, there is the part called my farm that user has registered. Provide water condition of each field. There is option to add or register new farms when using 𝗬𝗹 artificial intelligence. there is also part of weather updates customized for the current region of the farmer. So when you open up this PlantVillage new app, this is the first thing you will see on the top of your screen. There is a weather updates. Also, there is a short preview of PlantVillage current activity. So I think when you try to do it practically, you will see what I'm talking about. Also, there is a new tab. I think due time when you install this app and start using your mobile app, you'll be able to click in every option right there, and you can see what is it.
So what is
simply I can say that maybe I would like to respond to some question if there will be some. Thank you.
Yes. What has been the most challenging thing about your job with Dream Team PlantVillage?
Actually, the most challenging issue here is distance. You know, I think compared to other areas, in the workstation we are working to, farms are located far away from the villages, so you have to walk some miles so that you can reach the farm. But otherwise, there is some other little challenges which we are able to overcome them. But distance of the farms, that's the major challenging issue right here.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Tadai or any of the other PlantVillage members in Kasulu? Or perhaps one of the other members would like to say something, particularly one of the women, maybe?
I'm here.
Okay, great.
My name is Ashura. I'm a field officer in the Dream Team of Tanzania. I want to share how we help farmers to adapt to climatic change. As a field officer, our daily work of visiting farmers and farm and conducting training, we mostly insist farmers on diversifying crop rotation, improving soil quality by using inorganic fertilizers and improving soil qualities by using inorganic fertilizers. Also, we insist on minimizing of farm flows of nutrients. Also, we insist farmer to plant drought-resistant crops. Also, we insist farmers on growing fast varieties like legumes family, because this legumes family not only it is adding nutrient in the soil, but also improves the health of the soil. So we insist farmers to plant this legumes family, and also we insist farmer for better water management, like maybe farmer can harvest water in case for drought can use it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ashura. And what is the thing that has had the most impact so far that you have done?
Again?
What has had the most impact, or what have you been most happy about in your role? You're muted. Okay, I think we might have lost Ashura. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, maybe David, would you like to just comment briefly on future plans for PlantVillage?
Expansion. We started off with these really impressive 12 young people, 10, then 12, and now we're over 160. And they started off in Busia, Kenya, and now we're in 9 countries. We certainly want in the next 12 to 18 months to be in at least 40 countries. And I would say trying to be at least ideally 10,000 young people. And the only way we can get there is to continue in the way we started, which is recognizing 2 things. One is that we all work for farmers. So whatever we're doing, we're trying to optimize it for the farmer in front of us. And the second thing is, in a world that is completely changed, nobody has the answer. And typically the way the world has operated until now is that old people like myself get to say what should happen, and even older people than me get to say even more stuff that should happen. And this excludes young people. And this to me has always been a stupid idea, because young people have both the time and energy and more neurons for thinking about solutions. And my background is in evolutionary biology, so think of people like Charles Darwin and lots of other people who've made contributions. The great scientific contributions over time have been made by people in their 20s, 25, 26, 27, 28. It has not been made by people in their 50s and 60s. People in their 50s and 60s have power. They can get to say what should happen, but they don't have intelligence and time. These young people are time billionaires. They have time to do stuff. Older people are not time billionaires. They're running out of time. So I think that we must recognize that the future of Africa is not the young people. The present of Africa is the young people. They're the present. And we need to enable them to work effectively by giving them the tools and stop using our power to prevent them from doing things. So that's really, really important. Africa has 1.3 billion people. By 2050, we'll have 2.3 billion, 1 billion of which will be children. The future at the moment is unwritten. We can write a positive future for the continent of Africa. And everything I've seen up until now with this dream team is that they're just amazing. They do so much with each other and training and building trust and capacity building. They're just excellent. And so that's a very, very optimistic future going forward. But the answer to your question is, where do we want to be? We want to be bigger, more expansion, and fundamentally changing the world, because that's what is needed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. That's really inspiring, and I totally agree with everything that you've said. And certainly we are so happy to be working with the plant team in Kigoma and Mara, and hope that it can expand throughout Tanzania at some point. So thank you. So unless there's any other questions, I'm going to stop the recording.